What's up, y'all? Mark Smith, JBS Training Group. Let's talk about Leupold's new Mark 5 HD 2:10. So what is it? Why do I care? And how do I know whether I want this over something like an LPVO? Well, first of all, here it is in all its glory, mounted up on a 12.5-inch 6-arc, and it fits that role very, very well. But first, we kind of got to know where we came from, right? So this is the Mark 5 HD 3:18 variant. Really, really good scope. By most accounts, probably the best and definitely one of the best, mid-power range variable optics that there are. The Mark 6 came out and it had some issues, right? It had some stuff that, was less than stellar. And people quickly learned as time went on that the Mark 5 was the way to go. We have, with the Mark 5, a really good magnification zoom ring that lays, in my opinion, as a right-handed shooter, appropriately down and to the left. It comes with the little built-in cattail that you can take off if you so desire. We've got an adjustable diopter that does really good at staying where you end up putting it. And we've got an adjustable zoom over here on the left side of the optic, with my favorite part about it, the locking elevation turret. So this turret adjusts in 0.1 milradian or mrad, or mils, however you want to denote it. And it does it by pushing on this little button, and then you just kind of turn it to wherever you want. The setting or the dialing that you do is very easily denoted. It's very easy to see what setting you're on, or I keep calling it a setting. It's not really a setting, but you get what I'm saying. You can easily see where you're at on the dial. And 35 millimeter main tube, which means, y'all, this son of a gun will dial and dial and dial and like go all the way to 30. Yeah, 30 on the dial. So pretty cool. Windage is capped, but also same sort of jazz as the elevation turret, where you've got 0.1 adjustments. Once you get that set, typically people aren't really adjusting their windage on their dials, so cap that up. But as far as optically speaking, 3.6 to 18, this is a fantastic eyebox. Fantastic field of view. Light transmission, everything about it's just great, right? It's a really, really great mid-range scope. Here is why I really, really, really like Leupold's new 2:10. Let's get into it. So when you go from the 3.6 to 18 down to the 2:10, what we have is a scope that is exactly the same feature-wise, all the same features, but in like a significantly reduced footprint, a significantly reduced size. This is really cool. This is LPVO sized optic with capability of a larger optic. So what are some of the issues that come with LPVOs that the Mark 5 2:10 solves? Well, the adjustable focus on the side is really nice. If you're shooting far enough away from where that kind of stuff starts to matter. The elevation adjustments and the way the turret caps are set up, and the ability to fine-tune your reticle in 0.1 increments is really, really neat. If you are shooting in a capacity where it matters, that level of precision is a thing that's gonna matter. Also, a lot of people gripe a lot about the eyebox of the higher end of LPVOs, right? So the 1 to 10s, the 1 to 8s, they talk about how the eyebox is very constrictive, and how the field of view is diminished and it's really tight, and all this. That is not the case with this at all. This is daddy when it comes to field of view and good eyebox. So they had to, well, they didn't have to. They got rid of the 1X in order to be able to do this. A lot of people are mad about not having a 1X, and sorry. The 2:10 was not designed to be a 1X optic. It was designed to be a small package, and a very, very capable optic on a smaller platform where you don't need 18x and you don't need this thing kind of all up in your way, right? So like for reference, it's you know, they say it's like 1 inch shorter or something. It looks, it may be 1 inch shorter, but it's a lot tinier overall. This stuff kind of matters to certain people and not so much to others, and that's okay. But if you want a smaller form factor, maintaining the same capability as a higher end precision optic, the 2 to 10 is pretty awesome. Now, I know that Nightforce did a 2 to 10. I know that Zeiss did a 2 to 12. I got it, right? But none of them had the features like the Mark V does, and I really appreciate those little things, right? I also really dig Leupold as a company, so I'm a little bit biased, caveat to all that. But as far as what is the 2 to 10 Mark V, well, it's basically a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids version of the 3 to 18 and the 5 to 25 Mark V. It maintains all the same features, and honestly, like the only detriment, right? So like going to this optic, what's the detriment? The only detriment I have personally found is, as of right now, you don't get the same reticle selection, right? So if you want your Horus reticles and things like that, you're not going to get that with this yet. And you don't have the ability to zoom beyond 10x. So if those things are extremely important to you and you just can't live life without them, then you might want to stick with the regular old 3 to 6, or I'm sorry, 3.6 to 18, or the 5 to 25, or something similar in that category. But if you can live without that, but you want something a little easier on the eyes, pun intended, then your typical LPVO 1 to 6, 1 to 8, 1 to 10, really good option in the 2 to 10 Mark V. Let's talk about why you would want something like this over something like this. All right, so LPVO in its legacy form, we'll call it, right? The standard 1 to something, 1 to 6, 1 to 8, 1 to 10, versus the Mark V 2 to 10. So why would I pick one versus the other? So for the purposes of comparison, we're going to be using a 1 to 10 Vortex Razor. Size comparison, pretty close. So if you've got a Vortex 1 to 10, you're looking at the Mark V 2 to 10 being maybe an inch longer, maybe. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. The Mark V is going to have a larger main tube for the turret adjustability, but other than that, pretty similar. Most people that know me and that have been around JBS for a while know that I think of LPVOs as a red dot with magnification on board if needed. Well, Mark, why wouldn't you just use a magnifier? Because I don't like to. There are issues that come with using magnifiers that I just frankly don't want to deal with, and so I don't do it. Shooting at things far away is always going to be easier based on context, right? With a magnified optic that I can control the magnification range, and a magnified optic that has a measuring tape built inside of it where I can adjust based on ballistic arc and that sort of stuff. But I think of it as a red dot, right? A red dot, like, meaning the 1X is important to me. If it wasn't, I wouldn't have bought a scope that had a 1X on it, because when you buy a scope that has a 1X on it, you give up something on the higher end, right? Therefore, the 1X should be good. So when you set these things up and you set them up on the 1X and you start to play around with them at distance, what do you find that the Mark V will solve for you? Well, number one, adjusting the turret caps. It's not impossible. It's definitely a doable thing. I've done it. It's just a little, you got to be a little more careful, right? There's no locking ring. You can uncap this thing and it's got 0.1 adjustments, just like the Mark V does. But there's nothing that locks in place. There's nothing that's going to solidify, yes, you are back to 0. And so you kind of end up having to say, well, I'm pretty sure I'm at 0.5, but I could be at 0.6 because the little dot that shows me the lineup is it leaves a bit to be desired. Sorry about hitting the camera there. It's not as precise as something like the Mark V, where I've got an absolute like line that touches a line and it's just easier to see. The turret tracking is probably going to be a little more precise on something like the Mark V. That doesn't mean that the Vortex Razor or that any LPVO for that matter is not precise. It just means that when Leupold builds a precision optic, they do it pretty good, and typically you can count on the turrets to track true. You should always test this on your own. So you've got a better adjustability as it pertains to dialing some dope onto your gun. Why would I do this? Well, if I've got a target at 200, 400, and 600, I'm going to personally dial for the shot in the middle, and I'm going to hold under at 200, center for 400, and hold over for 600. That way I don't have to dig way down into the reticle to get that hold out of it. A lot of people don't do that. That's okay too, but I appreciate easily adjustable elevation turrets. What else? So the Vortex 1 to 10 is not going to have an adjustable focus knob. If the image is not clear, deal with it, right? It is what it is. What are some issues with this? Well, we can start to kind of stack variables and create inconsistencies with precision based on parallax and other things like that. If you don't know a whole lot about how adjustment knobs bring images and reticles together and things like that, go look up a scope video and it'll explain it all. But essentially, number one, having a clearer image is just better. And number two, it eliminates parallax and things like that. Next is going to be Leupold's ability to maintain a fantastic, I can't stress this enough, a fantastic eyebox through all of the magnification ranges. So you want to know how to piss somebody off? Take an LPVO, a Vortex 1 to 10, and dial it to 10 and let them look through it, and they'll just go all to pieces, right? Everybody just, oh, good Lord, I can't even deal with this, And it's because we've stacked so much capability in a zoom ratio into this tiny optic that you get what you get. You don't throw a fit, man. You either want 10x and a tight eye box or you don't. The cool part about Leupold is they were like, hey man, what if we just got rid of that 1x and gave the people a 10x that they could actually be happy about. And this is truly what is going on here. It's very hard to like, I don't mean to like oversell it. I'm not overselling it, right? This optic's not for everybody. But seriously, the 10x of the Mark V 2 to 10 is the same 10x as you'll see on the 3 to 18 or the 5 to 25. It's just great. You don't lose much of anything at all. It's still a great eye box, super forgiving, super clean image, adjustable focus. It's just fantastic. So here's what I would say. If the majority of your shooting is being done at, let's say 100 yards and in and on 1x, more than 50%, right? More than 50% of my shooting is being done at 1x, less than 100 yards away, then I think you should stick with an LPVO that has a really good 1x. Emphasis, really good 1x. Not all 1x scopes are created equal. If the majority of your shooting is happening at distances where magnification is going to help you out and you're going to actually want to be magnified, and the 1x is kind of not really that big of a deal to you, this is freaking king, y'all. Like, this is going to be dramatically easier to shoot well at distance than something like this. That does not mean that this can't get it done. Lots of people get it done with stuff like this all the time, and that's super cool, but it ain't going to be as easy as something like this. It's just the nature of the beast. It is what it is, right? Don't shoot the messenger. I'm not telling you that you can't shoot at distance on max magnification with an LPVO. That's not at all what I'm saying. I've done it for years, right? Like it works. But to say that's just the way we should do it and we shouldn't take into consideration how much easier it is with something like this is the same as saying, hey man, get your Glock 43 and compare it against something like a tuned up 2011 and then like tell me that it doesn't matter. Like, it does matter, right? Certain things do matter based on what you're doing with the gun. So I think that if you're doing more than the majority of your shooting at tinier things that require a larger amount of precision, I need to be able to see better, farther. I need to be able to dial up to the higher end of a piece of glass, something like that. Then the 2 to 10 is going to be your jam for sure. It is a perfect optic to fill the niche role of, like, I got a short gun that I shoot at tiny things in a precision manner. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be far away, right? So like 12.5-inch 6 arc, I'm not seriously shooting at anything that's alive beyond 400 yards with this gun. But 400 yards is a pretty long way when you're dealing with critters that are, the size of basketballs. So I appreciate the extra features and the extra capability that something like this 2-10 affords me. So, you know, all in all, man, there's so many options, and I love that more than anything. I love that the industry is pushing and creating new things. This is great, right? So we can go 1-10 for, you know, general purpose kind of jazz. We can go 2-10 for a true like DMR type platform that's still small, still capable inside of 100 with the offset, but is really, really handy for having a small form factor and being able to touch stuff at distance, or tiny things that require a large amount of precision. And then we've got stuff like this that we can throw on if we need to enhance that capability even further. So all in all, man, I think we're heading in a really good place. What you need is based on how you shoot, not based on what somebody on the internet tells you, right? So don't say, oh, Mark said I need a 2-10. No, I did not, right? I'm just giving you the overview of what I think about all of them. And you know, caveat, I shoot for Leupold, so I'm a little bit biased, but I truly do love Leupold scopes, and I believe I would shoot Leupold scopes even if I didn't shoot for Leupold. So, well, I know I would, I did. And so take that for what it's worth, man, and make good decisions based on what you're doing with a gun. You don't need the new hotness if you don't need it. But if you've been waiting on something to fill a void, right? This is the 12.5 inch to 14.5, 5.56 guns that I shoot at distance or at tinier things, you know, beyond 100 yards most of the time. The 6 arcs and things of that nature that we're shooting, you know, out to 500-600 yards. These are really neat little options for doing stuff like that. So that's what I got, man. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the comments box below, and I will definitely have this gun probably in at least 2 out of the 3 Performance Out Yonder courses that we got coming up. Got one in Port Angeles, Washington, got one in Zim, Minnesota, and got one in Texas. The one in Texas is going to be attached to a DMR match on day 3. That's Veterans Day weekend. November the 10th and 11th is the class. November 12th is the match. It's going to be super cool. It's how I think about rifle shooting and true rifle marksmanship. If you want to hit the class, you can get the class and the match, and I'll help you get coached up through the match and you know, coach you on a stage and coach you how I control the thoughts and the mental side of shooting a DMR match. And then if you want to just do the class, you can of course do that as well and not be obligated to go to the match, but this will absolutely be there, and Leupold's going to have some cool stuff on the prize table as well. So that's what I got, man. Hope you guys enjoy that. Mark Smith, JBS Training Group.